Hello, and welcome to the Tower Coffee Hour. This is Preston, or Ty Tyree, your host, and we had a chance to go last night to the PIAC meeting for March. It was a fairly short agenda, and we got through in about 30 minutes. I think that's the fastest we've ever gotten through. So let's just jump right in. We had 3 items: officer elections, which are coming up in April, the budget for Miller Parks as the city takes over, and the transition working group update. So let's go see what they had to say.
Okay. Good evening. This meeting of the Robert Mueller Municipal Airport Plan Implementation Advisory Commission is called to order at 6:01 p.m. on Tuesday, March the 12th, 2024. We're meeting at Austin Energy headquarters, and present in person are Commissioners Hilliard, Clements, Sokolik, Jackson, Nider, Kravaniak, and Jones. Commissioners, the first item on our agenda is public communications. And no one has signed up for public communications at today's meeting. So we'll then move on to approval of the minutes. Commissioners, I hope you've had an opportunity to look at the minutes from our February 13th meeting. Are there any changes, additions, or other corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the February meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other questions? Those in favor of approval of the February meeting minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The February meeting minutes are approved. The next item is a update from our liaisons at the Economic Development Office about an item that's going to be coming up at our April meeting. And we're pleased to have very distinguished Pam Hefner joining us today.
Hi, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
You can, but I don't think it is. Your mic on? There we go.
Hi, Commissioners.
Yes.
I'm Pam Hefner with the Economic Development Department. I'm pleased to be here. We wanted to remind you that per city code, current officer terms will expire at the end of April with new terms beginning on May 1st. Therefore, at next month's meeting, you will all need to elect a chair and a vice chair. We won't be discussing nominations today, but be thinking about whether this is something you're interested in for next month's meeting. Lastly, if you want to make or accept a nomination, you must be present at the meeting. And that's all I had for you.
Okay. Commissioners, did you have any questions for Pam regarding officer elections coming up next month? All right. As we said, if someone has some interest, you should probably notify us fairly quickly. And like I said, once we get to the meeting, I'm sure we'll figure something out. The next item on our agenda is a carryover from our previous meeting. It pertains to the budget review process. I think if you'll recall last month, we discussed that in the past, traditionally, this commission has not weighed in on making recommendations to council on budget items, but because of our unique situation, the pending end of the project, that we thought that there were some issues that maybe we wanted to weigh in on, and one of them was the funding for the perimeter parks that either are or will soon be returned back to control by the city of Austin. Prior to this meeting, our vice chair took the lead on preparing a resolution for your discussion. And at this time, I'll ask the vice chair if he'll review the draft recommendation.
Thank you. Does anybody need me to read all of it? I think it's pretty clear. Thanks very much to the staff for helping me with this. We got the wording, I think, kind of clear and didn't get into too many details. I wanted to put the amount that we're adding, but that wasn't really necessary. The city needs to know what it is they need to pay. And So if anybody has any issues with the wording or questions about what it is we're doing, now's the time to say something.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
Maybe I should say a little bit more about what this is, just for the record. that
Yeah,
we
so
are-
that everybody is
we
clear,
are,
because you're right, not everybody has a copy of it.
Recommending that the city council, for the fiscal year 20, I think it's for 2024-25, PARD contribute, Parks and Recreation Department contribution towards the maintenance of the 3 perimeter parks within Mueller that will be dedicated to them by that time if they're not already. And so contribute sufficient amount of funds that were the initial, well, that this year's funding's lack for, especially for the part of the perimeter parks that didn't get funded basically this year. That's the skate park and pump track, part of the southeast greenway. Yeah. So it's just asking for a little more money to help the Property Owners Association of Miller out with the maintenance of the park.
There'll be opportunity for public testimony, once you know. Yes, Kathy.
Okay, so I did the math, and we're asking for $112,636 more dollars. Just for the record, how was that calculated?
I think that came from, I'm not actually completely sure. That number was, I think, came from the Property Owners Association, that they determined that's what they felt that would be needed, or for the property management, whoever's doing the actual maintenance, over what was funded for this year.
Got it. Thank you for doing this. I'm in favor.
So I will say that the total for next year is $257,140.
Commissioners, other questions? Oh, yes, Pam.
The current approved amount is $144,504.
Yes.
And so this kind of annexes in the final piece of the perimeter parks, and that would give it enough to, the part pitch in.
Thank you for that clarification. I hope that helps. Yes, Dave.
I think I'm good, actually, yeah. Yeah, overall, thank you, Rick. Appreciate you putting this together. I think it's a good ask, and yeah.
Commissioners, other questions or thoughts on this job? I would just, and some of you may have seen a recent newspaper story, statesman story, about some of the challenges that the city is facing budget-wise because of unexpected declines in revenue, and also it's not directly related, but school districts, including several in this area, are also facing some challenges. So if there's a time to speak up about the need to maintain these amenities that are available to all of East Austin, this is probably a good time to do it. So any other questions or thoughts?
Just one follow-up.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, I was just thinking through, so in the final whereas, under the terms of the PMA, and that said the Mueller POA has requested, I'm just kind of wondering, like, I guess it is the POA asking, it just feels like and I haven't read the PMA in detail, but like, does the PMA not the thing that's sort of the thing that's almost asking? I mean, obviously the association, the POA would like the money, but like, it's not so much like, hey, POA do us we're the POA, do us a favor. It's like, we had an agreement. There's an agreement that that the PMA is sort of dictating. So I'm just wondering, I don't know, when I read it, it sounds like the POA is the requester, when I'm almost wondering if it's just like, where's under the terms of the PMA? And I guess this is the part where Kathy was getting to about like where the number comes from. Like, the PMA dictates that this should be the value versus the POA coming up with the number. I don't know if we have any detail there, but if it was strictly just coming, the PMA is saying this is what the number should be based off of the contract, then I'd rather just say based off of what the PMA is asked, is dictated, then.
Pam, do you have some information that might help clarify things?
Yes, there was a negotiation between PARD and the POA.
Okay.
Because these are public parks that would normally be completely maintained by the city because they're open to the entire city. And, but this is an agreement to help PARD and to acknowledge that the POA would probably like to maintain the parks at a higher level than PARD would normally have funds to do. And so it allows PARD to provide the money they might spend on the parks to the POA, and so the POA can maintain them with that supplement and add to it to maintain them at a higher level. And this is every contract that the city approves is subject to council approval. So, and they do that with the budget every year. So they will, there's an agreement, but it's not valid unless, they approve it at budget time. And so that's why you see the same item. It's just what was agreed to, and we just want to, this is to try to keep it in the budget.
Yeah. Okay, I'm probably trying to overthink it, but like my brain's like under the terms of the, you kind of have it set here, under the terms of the POA or the PMA. The POA is requesting basically what's in the PMA. So, okay, I'm good. I don't want to overly quibble. Thank you.
Kathy, did you have a
I was
question?
just gonna explain again, like we had agreed to do this to, excuse me, I'm allergic to everything in the parks, to solidify that ask and request. That's why we're doing it.
Right, I could see somebody reading this and saying the Mueller POA is requesting, and somebody might be like, why we give, like, I don't know, it's like, yeah, I guess they're the requester, but like, there wasn't, like, really we're asking just to comply with the bounds of the agreement that was previously made. So, all right, I'm good, thank you.
I think we talked this over last time, and I think we just want to memorialize the ask of what it's supposed to be, and just establish that this year, or 2004, I think we're memorializing the amount.
Anybody else have questions? And again, remember that, as we mentioned before about budgetary issues, the city has lots of competing, really good ideas, and there's lots of competition for these dollars, so it's another factor. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Is anyone signed up to provide testimony?
I picked it up a little early, but
Okay.
did anybody else?
Okay. All right. So no one's signed up? No one signed up to provide testimony. Okay. Since there's no public testimony, is there a motion regarding approval of the recommendation to City Council on parks funding?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Sure. Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other questions? Those in favor of approving the recommendation to Council on Parks funding, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The recommendation is approved. The next item on the agenda is a verbal update from our transition working group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corky.
We're in a process of gathering information. Since we were here last, we've met with Karen Sharp from the M&A POA Transition Committee and with city staff. And we're continuing to schedule meetings with people, organizations that have important information or oversight of this plan, and that's really about all I can say right now. We're still in the information gathering business.
Commissioners, any comments or questions regarding our suggestions for the work group as they proceed on with their task.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did, are there, and I know you've talked to city staff as well as others, are there any other resources or other stakeholders that you'd like to reach
Yeah.
out to?
Yeah, and we're really developing that work as we go along, so we're continuing to put that group together. We don't have any firm appointments made yet, but in the process of doing that.
Is there anything any of the rest of us can do to help? Because it's,
Sure. If you have any ideas about important organizations to touch base with. I mean, the initial beginning here is to see what items of the MDA have some concern or have not yet been addressed. And we're trying to find those areas where there's still questions. So we're mostly just asking that question about the evaluation of the completion of the MDA. But yeah, any ideas you all have about organizations or groups or that we should be talking to, that would be very helpful.
Andrew?
ECTC board had a really good meeting, lunch
Okay.
meeting, daytime meeting that I missed a week or two ago.
Okay.
I know they have, I think they were surprised by, I think they had 10 or 12 representatives in attendance.
Right?
And I know we always think of the residents, but it's equally important to think of the commercial interests.
Thank you.
And Andrew, for those that aren't familiar with the difference between that board and the mixed-use board, could you just kind of explain the difference?
Complicated. We have a triangle of boards. Here in Mueller, we have the residents, which is the mixed-use board, and we have the ECTC, which is the commercial side of things for the most part, and then at the top of the triangle is the master board that is over both of those boards, but those two boards recommend appointments to the master. And the ECTC had a really good meeting a couple of weeks ago that been, I think, a little fallow, that as we're moving toward transition, I think it's equally important to get their thoughts, because they're part of Mueller too and pay their dues into maintaining the organization.
Thanks for that clarification. Again, any other questions or suggestions for the transition work group? Martin, you had something?
I was waving hello
Okay.
down the way since I'm late.
No problem. All righty.
Thank you.
Is anyone signed up to provide any testimony on the transition work group update? Okay. All righty. The next, I don't see Brian here, so there's no development update. The next item on the agenda is future agenda items, and we, your vice chair and I have been talking with our liaisons about potential topics now that we're getting to the point where we're going to be hearing updates that are going to be kind of the final information we'll receive on certain topics. We're looking forward to, but we have not nailed down. And since the folks we've been talking to, I don't know if they left you any of the information about potential items in their notes or not. But if they didn't, that's okay, because, okay. I'll tell you, one of the topics that probably is coming due is the update on contracting with minority and women-owned businesses. And since one of the guiding principles pertains to economic development here in East Austin, and so we'll particularly be interested in any information that focuses on how much of the contracts have gone to Austin-based or Central Texas-based businesses. And since we're getting out of the point where probably almost all of the contracts have been let and we're getting close to a final figure, that's one of the topics. And we don't have the exact date, but probably coming close to an update on the financial health of the project, and which, unless something has dramatically changed in the last few months, this project is very successful. So we'll look forward to that update, and particular any information that is known about how TIF funds are used. I think it's probably pretty routine, but there's some things that we may be interested in exploring further. Those also, unless something has been altered or changed in terms of timeline, April is also in addition to the officer elections, April's also the meeting where we would start talking about the outline for our annual report to City Council. And this will be the last report that covers a 12-month period. My assumption is that our discussions would pertain not only to what goes in the report, but what wouldn't be included in what space we want to leave or topics we want to leave for any final recommendations at the end of the year. And if there are other suggestions for agenda topics, that's all for April, so we expect a somewhat more robust agenda for that meeting than this month. And there are still some other topics that we had hoped to have now or next month that kind of fell through, but if they come through, we'll include them in on the agenda as well. Yes, Rick?
I just wanted to ask if any of the staff that are here are aware of any sort of major infrastructure project items that are left that would, and do they have to be, well, I would assume that they can be started before the end of the MDA Master Developer Agreement. They don't necessarily have to be finished by that time. But is there any major thing left that I'm not aware of?
Yes, parks, the Control Tower Park is probably the most major. As you and I discussed this afternoon, we have a potential trail that we're trying to get through permitting, but it is kind of up in the air at this point because of the requirements. So probably we might want to give perhaps a parks update or something in the future. And I also noticed 51st Street was on the list. I looked at the old notes, so.
No, it's been on the list for a long time.
It's just that there's no movement, so.
Thank you.
Oh, Control Tower in May.
Oh, control. Thank you. Everybody heard that control tower in May. Good. That's good timing for that. All righty. Any other agenda items for April and May? Yes, Andrew.
Don't know if they're April or May, but I have 2 agenda items I'd like to request.
Okay. You want it? You can email me, or we can.
I would rather just present it and see if there's anybody co-sponsors.
Oh, okay.
To get them moving. The first is.
Well, we won't make it a discussion. We won't make a motion tonight. But if there's agenda items, you can just.
We're talking about future agenda items.
Yeah,
right,
okay.
That we would like to see.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Good.
I would like a discussion about the Robert Browning hangar disposition. We've had multiple groups come before us. I do know we've said it's in the master development agreement that it be redeveloped, but I know the group that has formed, that's pushing for it, has gone to my council member, so Quadri, and others, and I think it warrants, since we're supposed to talk about redevelopment issues, I think it's a redevelopment issue. And I personally see some benefits to the city of Austin retaining ownership and perhaps long-term lease with whoever they're talking with. Because I think it'd even protect the leasee, not having to shoulder the $2 or $3 million maintenance item of re-roofing it at some point. So I would like to discuss, and I personally have qualms about the commercial development jumping Mueller Lake. I think there's a lot to be said for that side of the lake remaining more public and park-like, since it's been that way for 15 or 20 years. And I mean, I support attractors in parks, like the food.
And you said there's another agenda item?
Yeah, the food vendor that's been allowed in Republic Square, so I support something there. I just would hate to see the hangar go completely commercial and shut out the public for a private venture. So I would like a discussion. I may be looking for a co-sponsor. The second is I'd like to discuss a Mueller Community Center. There was a real push 4 or 5 years before the pandemic, Karen Sharp actually headed the committee up, and I did a cost estimate for the idea of a community center. But I think that's a real failing of the master plan design book, that there's no call for a community center in Mueller. We're gonna have 17,000 residents and 17,000 jobs, which is bigger than Fredericksburg, Texas. But there's no plans for a community center. And a community center could be larger than just Mueller. It could serve all of East Austin. There's a new model called an intergenerational resource activity center that was being proposed for Festival Beach, but both the neighborhood and the Commission on Aging is opposing that. So they may be looking for, and it's already partially funded. So I would say another model for that could occur in Mueller and serve the larger East Austin community.
Thank you for those two suggestions. And again, if there are any other topics particularly for April and May, just email them to me, preferably in the next week or so, so we'd have enough time to work it through and get that added to the agenda. Anything else before we adjourn?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The bylaws seem to say that they're supposed to be co-sponsors for an agenda item. They can't just be brought by one.
I think we do need two people to do that.
I just want to understand the rules.
Yes.
Happy to co-sponsor.
There you go. And I'll also add on your other suggestion, community center. That may also be potentially a transition issue, but you know who to talk to on that one. So, yes. If there are no other issues, is there a motion? Oh, yes, Rick.
It's on our minutes from last month to have, I mean, I know the University of Texas does not have to respond to the city, but it's worth asking again to see what their plans are, and I think we should be bugging them a lot these days. So I just wanted to put that out there too. And then also, Bradgaber Trail specifically is called out on here, but maybe just sort of an overall trail update is a potential item. It doesn't have to be next month, but sometime before we go away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yes, Corky.
You know, as we close out, it seems like we have an opportunity now to have a variety of former presenters come into a final disposition and place it like that, about sort of what the current situation is, what's a dangling issue, and what the future says for the authority or the administration of their particular function. And I think we have a lot of those. I think the financial stuff and the TIF and all that, we have the whole notion of the properties that are not finalized in their seating, which also includes Miller Central. I mean, there are several of them out there. And as well as the what will be the status on December 5th of the, for example, minority and women's business. I mean, maybe a city function pickup, probably. But exactly what situation are they in now, and what will be the situation after the developer contract is concluded? Where will that function reside? And is there any business that needs to be done? Which is why UT really, we should really push them if we can to get them in here, and also with some others. And again, the affordable housing should also come in and talk to us about the forward motion of that program after the relationship with the developer is gone. So we have several, I think, that are out there, and probably just need an inventory of what those are.
Affordable housing is definitely future agenda, probably not for the next couple of meetings, but a
No,
little
at some
later in the
point
summer
before.
as we get closer to our,
Yeah, and probably we need, I would suggest we think about trying to have these completed prior to November. So if there is work to be done on them, that we have a little time to work through some of the issues.
thank you. If there are no other topics, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any objections? Meeting adjourned. Look forward to seeing everybody next month for a somewhat longer meeting.